Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we are talking about the question of should I leave or should I stay? So, if you're new to me here, just do a quick intro. My name is CC Caren. I've been a practicing psychotherapist for 25 years, and I am a marriage coach and a relationship expert. I moved my practice online 3.5 years ago, post COVID, and I have been working online locally and globally with women and couples around the world. So I have started this YouTube channel pretty recently, and I'm going to be putting up new workshops a couple times a week for you. So today, this has been coming up a lot. I hear this often with my clients. I hear this on social media, in the DMs. And so I thought it would be a really good opportunity to have this conversation for the woman who is thinking of leaving. So the way I want you to approach this talk is that I want you to think about this as helping you think through your decision. So I'm not here to tell you whether you should stay or whether you should go, or that there's some perfect formula that you can work through in order to be so confident in your decision. Because the reality is that any big decision you're going to have in life is going to come with lots of internal consternation or agony. It's not going to be easy, but what we know is that just because you're struggling with a decision, it doesn't mean it's the right decision or the wrong decision. It just means it's a really big decision. So I want to talk you through this. And so there's lots of questions that I've received about this topic. So I'm going to use some of those as prompts for us to have this conversation. So some things that people wonder is, how long do you wait? Like, how long do you wait before you make this decision? And I would say there's a lot of factors that go into that, the how long you wait. And so it's, well, how long have you been unhappy for? How long have you been working at this? How long have you been trying to repair or revive your marriage? Do you have any hope? Is there any hope? So I want you to you can journal on some of these questions that I am giving you. And another question is, can your spouse be what you need them to be in order for you to feel what you felt in the beginning? Because the reality is, for many people, is that at one point in time, you loved this person, right? Or maybe not. We'll get into that a little bit. But at one point in time, if this was someone who you loved, who's a good person, a good human, and they still are, then I want you to ask yourself, like, can we get that back? Or can we get that and then some back, like something even better than that back? And so then it's, are you willing to do the work? Can you do the work with your partner? And are you working, or are you already doing the work? And are you working with someone who knows how to help you? So how long do you wait? There is no magic number here. It's really a matter of how you feel about the work you've put in, the effort you've put in, and how much more can you give to the marriage. Now, let's say you're doing all the giving and your partner isn't. So you're going to create a really, really big imbalance. And that's going to make it harder to endure more work. But let's say you're both putting the work in and you're both working hard. That is going to mitigate the decision around the length of time you're willing to wait. So you're both putting the work in. Okay. So you might be willing to say, you know what, let's give this 6 months. So when a couple comes to me, if they say, you know what, we don't know if this is going to work, one of the first things I'm assessing is this salvageable? Now, that doesn't happen in one session, but I typically tell a couple, give us 3 months of working together, and we'll pretty much have a sense if it's salvageable or not. Now, you're not gonna be where you want to be likely in 3 months, but we'll have a sense if it's salvageable. And then we have a conversation at the 3-month mark. And if we don't know yet, then there's a negotiation of, okay, so do you both want to reassess this in another X number of months? And so these are some of the things that I want you to be thinking about as you are thinking through your decision. Now, can your spouse change? So we never want to go into a relationship trying to change someone, right? Because that we only have control over our own behavior, not over someone else. But let's say you both started in this one particular place and you were so connected, you were on the same page. And then you're going through life together, and one of you is working on yourself, doing personal development, and you're growing and developing. And you notice that your partner isn't. And you're trying to get your partner to do their own work. You're trying to get your partner to go to therapy, to do personal development, to do self-growth, whatever it is, but they're against it. They don't want to. So you just keep growing. The risk there is that you grow, they stay stagnant, and then you've got this big gap between where you are and where they are. So now the question is, can your spouse change? Can they grow? How big is that gap? And are you two able to bridge that gap with their growth and your patience of sort of taking a couple of steps back so that you can meet them? Is that possible? And do you have any hope? Hope is a really big thing. Like, are you hopeful? Is there even a glimmer of hope that this could be possible? That the two of you could somehow create something that's really meaningful, that's sustainable, that could last for a lifetime, really. I mean, the reality is that ideally we'd like our marriage with our primary person to last a lifetime, right? And so that's that's kind of the beginning of how I would begin to think about this, the beginning steps. So the other things that I'd be asking you is, how long have you been unhappy? A few months, a year, a few years, 10 years since the beginning? And if you've been unhappy for a long time, have you shared this with your partner? And what's their response been? Have they been like super attentive? Oh my gosh, I want you to be happy. You know, part of being in a marriage is that we lift each other up and make each other happy. What can I do? Or have you told your spouse that you're unhappy and they've said, well, that's your problem. It's your feelings, so you have to deal with it? Or have you kept it to yourself? And now all of a sudden you're starting to feel it and you're thinking about it, and maybe you've only recently shared it with them. So if you've told them you're unhappy and they are disinterested and unwilling to help, that's one thing. If you've told them you're unhappy and they are saying, wow, what can I do? That's another story. So to me, that gives hope. Okay. That's a mitigating factor, and that gives hope. Let me talk about a few mitigating factors. Longevity. You've been together a long time. There's a deep investment. You both love each other. You both want it to work. You have a shared vision for your future. So you don't have to have all of these, but if you have some of these, those are mitigating factors for the work to move forward in the right direction. So the other thing that I want to talk about is just the reality that connections wax and wane. And couples go through ups and downs. If you've been together long enough, you have gone through bouts of being unhappy or discontent in your marriage. Now, does that mean you are to get a divorce or separate? No, not necessarily. But it might mean that your marriage needs more attention, or you need more buffer in the foundation to be able to withstand the ups and downs that are happening. And so I always like to think about the following question, which is there such a thing really as the point of no return? And I think that there are times when couples get too far gone, and I see them, they come into my office or they come into my space virtually, and one partner is sort of like, yeah, I think I want to work on this. And the other partner's like, I'm just here because, my husband or my wife asked me to be here, and I figured it's the least I could do. So I'm already questioning, like, okay, is this couple too far gone? Then what I'm really assessing is, can I engage the partner who's only here because their partner wants them to be here? Can I engage that husband or wife? And do they start to connect and engage with the work? If yes, then you might not be too far gone. They might just need a little nudge to re-engage back in the marriage and engage in the work. And so that is something that is important to consider. And Now, this is a question that comes up. So the question is, do you have reasons to stay, or are you looking for reasons to keep you from leaving? Now, let me say that again. Do you have reasons to stay? I love my partner. We have kids together. Our retirement plan is amazing. I want to carry that out. We were best friends. We have longevity. Or are you looking for reasons to keep yourself from leaving? What's this going to do to the kids? How am I going to be able to survive? Can I afford this? So I want you to really think about that, because those are two very different questions. And it's really important that if you're going to stay, you find reasons to stay because you want to stay, rather than just looking for reasons to prevent you from leaving. Okay, so a few other things that I want you to consider. Do you understand why the marriage deteriorated? And do you understand what your contribution is? And so there's lots of reasons why marriages deteriorate. The most common, I would say, is disconnection. Couples get disconnected, and then we see this cascade effect. And sometimes we might see an affair from the disconnection. We might see a lot of fighting from the disconnection. We might just see you're ignoring each other from the disconnection. So do you understand what happened? And if you do understand what happened, can you get in there and start to implement some strategies to strengthen the foundation where those fractures happened? And have you reflected on your contributions to that? So disconnection, have you reflected on how you've contributed to not being connected in your relationship and not keeping the energy, putting the energy into the relationship to really keep the vitality going? And also, okay, so a word about resentment and bitterness, because this is really a big one. So by the time couples feel a large, massive amount of resentment and contempt, there's a lot of breaking down that needs to happen, and it's not always possible. So I always say to couples, it's really important that you start working on yourselves before you get to the point where the bitterness and resentment has built up and now you're feeling a lot of contempt. And contempt is really just this visceral anger and aggression towards your partner, because that is a very toxic dynamic in relationships. And so a lot of times what happens with resentment is it's when we're doing things in the marriage that we don't want to do, but we're doing them anyway. And so what's really important about that is that you find a reason to do the thing you're doing. Because if you don't find a reason to do the thing you're doing, then you're going to have resentment. So then you either don't do that thing or you find a reason to do it. This is the way we prevent resentment. So it's like, if I'm going to work on the marriage and I'm going to put more effort in because I really want this marriage to work, I need to do that because I really want to do that, not because my partner's unwilling and I'm desperately trying to save this. Because if you have years and years and years of that, the resentment is so built up, and resentment and bitterness lead to contempt. And that's very hard to unravel. Not impossible, but hard to unwind. So a few other things to consider I want you to reflect on. How well do you communicate? And when you and your spouse are wanting to talk, you or your spouse are wanting to talk, is the other open and willing when asked? Like when your spouse says, we need to talk, I have some things on my mind, do you bring your full self to the table, or are you in those conversations? And do you think you put the work in? Like, do you feel good? So this is sort of one of the final questions I want you to think about. Do you feel good about the work that you've put into the marriage? Because for so a lot of women are watching this, but it could be most women. What's really important is that you feel good about the efforts you've put in and the work that you've done as you're thinking through this decision. Because what happens with a lot of women is they say, well, maybe I could do more, maybe I should do more. And they don't really know how to go about assessing how much they've done. So I also want you to think about that. And if you have any questions about any of this, find me on my social media, Carrie Cohen Coaching on Instagram. You can email me, cc@carriecohencoaching.com. It's all over my YouTube channel. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, any feedback, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Until next time, I will see you again soon.